Alright, here we go. McFarlane Toys, Doom the Dark Ages, Doomslayer. This is the Phalanx skin, so this is basically just an alternate skin that you can rock in the game if you feel like wearing something different than the normal Doomslayer look, which is this one right here. So this is nothing new for McFarlane. They're pretty big on their repaints when the time calls for it. And in the last couple of Doom games, you've been able to change your costume, change your colors around, just you know, have a little bit different look. So McFarlane has done this in the past with other Doomslayer figures that they've released, but there is something interesting about this one. There's a few interesting things about this one. Some good, some maybe not so good. So let's check it out and see what we think. So here's your man out of box. And you're going to notice right away, McFarlane obviously scales their figures pretty large, and the Doomslayer is just a large character in the game anyway. So he's a big, stocky guy. He's got some weight to him. This is, you know, it's a solid figure. Proportionally, his arms, his legs, his torso, and everything is all super thick. He's definitely, you know, he's been in the gym in between his visits to hell. So a couple of things about this figure. This is the less expensive option for the Doomslayer that McFarlane has available at the moment. The original version, I believe it was called the Elite line. It's different than their standard figures, but that one was more expensive. I think that one was like 54 bucks or something at Walmart where I got it. I think he retails for like 60 online. And this version I think was only about 30. So if you just want a cheaper version of the Doomslayer from Dark Ages, this is the one to get. However, there are sacrifices that you will make as a result. So as we get in closer, you'll see what I mean. Like, there is a certain degree of paint detailing. There's still like a nice little wash going over a lot of the armored parts. So it's not like a completely, you know, half-ass paint job necessarily, but if you're comparing it to what came before, you're gonna notice some differences. And we'll do that a little later, but right now I kind of want to just focus on the sculpt and see what we got on offer here. So you can see the armor is all very nicely detailed, I would say. Sculpt-wise, you can see all the chainmail like in there, particularly like under the red piece. You can kind of see it around the lower part of the torso, as well as like hanging down here in front, and yeah, just above, like just right there on the hips, you can see it. Obviously, you got some more technological stuff going on with like the red light and you know, some of the more alien-looking technology, we'll call it. He does have a fur cape, although this is a plastic cape that's molded to look like fur. It is a little bit of a softer, like rubbery kind of plastic, so there's a little bit of give to it. Nothing crazy, but like it's, you know, it's nicely detailed, nicely textured. I think this works. So talking articulation, his head is on a ball, so you'll get a little bit of back and forth, up and down. Nothing crazy in terms of like how far up or down he can look, but you know, it's kind of hindered by this fur collar, well, this plastic collar that looks like fur. Here's where you might start seeing issues with the figure. So like as you try to pose the arms, they will pop out pretty easily. Now they do pop back in, no problem. So it's fine, and it's, you know, you're still going to be able to rotate it and move it and not have too many issues. The problem you're going to run into is with the shoulder pad. See, having it push up against the plastic cape, you're basically like using it like a fulcrum, like a lever, and it's just going to pop off when you're trying to pose, like if you're trying to get his arms out to his sides like that. So that's kind of annoying. You're definitely sacrificing that articulation. So yeah, his shoulders will pose the whole way around. You just got to fight with them a little bit. At the elbow, you're not going to get a ton of articulation. It's just a single joint, so that's about as good as you're going to get. Less than 90 degrees on that deal. But there is a swivel inside the elbow joint. So this is actually something that they started implementing with their classic Doom figure. The original Eternal version didn't have that, and that really hurt the figure in my opinion. Even though he doesn't have like a bicep swivel, you do get the equivalent like articulation point, so he can have a little bit more arm movement. Hinge at the wrist, which is, they work pretty nicely, as well as a swivel, so you'll be able to move his hands around pretty nicely. At the torso, you got a cut at the diaphragm and a cut just above the waist there, and these are ball joints, I believe, so you're going to be able to get them a little bit of side to side. Nothing too crazy because of just the size of the figure, and obviously you'll be able to twist them a little bit too. Forward and back, nothing like crazy, again, but a little bit. So the legs split out about this far. This one seems like it goes a little farther. I'm wondering if this is because this belt piece with the chain gets in the way. Forward and back, you're getting about that far forward, a little less than 90. The back, again, you're not going to get too far back because it's hindered by the loincloth plastic piece here. Single joint at the knee. He's got a boot swivel, which is something I don't think I expected, which is pretty nice. But yeah, pretty limited knee range just because of the single joint. And the same can be said for the ankle. He's only got a little bit of a hinge, and it's not going to give you much because of how giant his feet are, and very, very little in terms of his ankle rocker. Like, this is barely anything. So yeah, he's not exactly setting the world on fire with his articulation, and some of the points that could function better, unfortunately, just don't because of the engineering. So like I said, with the shoulders that kind of pop out really easily, and you know, if you try and move his arms anything other than kind of like straight out in front of him, they're just gonna pop out, which is definitely annoying. But at the same time, it's an easy fix to put them back in, and you know, I don't know if you're gonna want this figure to be doing super hyper dynamic poses or anything, but if you do, just be aware that that's probably going to get in your way. As far as accessories go, it's not a whole lot happening here either. You get, first of all, you get a skin that you can put in your code in the Doom Dark Ages video game, and you'll be able to play with this skin in the game, which is kind of cool, honestly. Like, I like this color scheme, and then, you know, as you're playing the game, if you're watching the cutscenes or whatever, if you want them wearing this, there you go. You can play through the whole game again on Nightmare, be like, I want to see what it looks like when this guy's wearing red in the cutscenes. Two alternate hands. One is a wide open left hand, and the other is a fisted right hand. So, you know, you'll be able to pop those on and off pretty easily. Also got a super shotgun. Looks a lot like the in-game render, so I do like this. This is pretty nice. And then lastly, you get the McFarlane toys, circular stand with the peg on it. These I like a lot. These are very versatile. I use them for like my stop motion stuff all the time. So yeah, I like this. This is welcome. So if I can point out yet another grievance I have, his shotgun fits in his hand very nicely, but the problem is there is no hinge that moves the wrist like down, you know, up and down. It's just in and out. So he's constantly going to have his shotgun pointing in a completely different direction than his arm is pointing, which is really kind of annoying if you want to have him just even so much as pointing his gun out in front of him. The only way to do that is have him shooting like way down here beneath the hip, and that's, I don't know about all that. I suppose if you wanted to, you could pop the open hand on there and then just have it look like he's kind of holding the shotgun in front of him at the ready. This is not terrible. Maybe it looks a little weird around the elbow area because of just the way they engineered the arms. So like this bicep is facing straight out, and so is this one, and yet his arm is curved completely inward. So like if you're looking at that, maybe a little weird, but you know, from certain angles, it's actually right here. Kind of looks pretty good right there. So I've showed you here what he comes with, and notable by its absence is something very important that he does not come with. So if you'll notice here inside a little character art, he's got a shield. You see, the entire gameplay mechanic of Doom the Dark Ages is based around your shield. You're blocking, you're parrying, you're throwing your shield, you're using it for attacks and for traversal and all different stuff. So McFarlane, for whatever reason, has decided we don't need that in our figure. I cannot fathom the logic. Like, that is, like I said, it's the gameplay mechanic for Doom the Dark Ages. It is the #1 thing that makes Doom the Dark Ages different from every other Doom game. It's like no other Doom game before have you had the, you know, the shield. That's a whole brand new thing for this game, and this figure just doesn't have it. Like, I don't, why? So here's what I mean. This is the original McFarlane Dark Ages Doomslayer. This was like the one in the Elite line, like I mentioned before, and this is just kind of your standard recolored version. And you can see it's a night and day difference in terms of like their paint applications. Like, there's much more detail on this one, much more variation in terms of like matte versus shiny, glossy kind of stuff, metallics, all that kind of stuff. And possibly most important of all, boom, this one has a shield. So this one is a much better representation of the Doomslayer from Doom the Dark Ages compared to this one. So confusing. Like, he has a shield in the picture of this skin. Like, I know he has a shield in the game with this color scheme. I don't understand. One of the first differences you're going to notice is obviously this one has the actual soft goods cape with the fur. Does that mean he has the boots with the fur? I don't know. This isn't like wired cloth goods or anything, so it's not like you're not going to get it behind him and like pose it super dynamic or anything, but it's just, you know, something a little different. So as we get in closer, you're going to notice this one has the mounted shoulder cannon, whereas this version obviously does not. The reason for that is this one actually swivels. It pops in right here behind the shoulder, and you know, you can kind of pose it up how you want. Whereas this one, the cape is plugged into that that port in his back of his shoulder, so like you're not going to get, you know, like obviously this would be in the way of a cannon, so you can't really do anything with that. Incidentally, I'll point out that you don't have nearly as much of a problem posing this one's arms out to his side because, like I said, the plastic cape gets in the way and kind of like acts as a lever to, you know, pry it apart, whereas this one, not the case. So, you know, I do like that you're going to get more articulation out of the original version too. And as you look at the detail, you're going to see like a lot more finer details in the armor, whereas this one is like a lot more flat of a paint job. This one has way more going on in terms of like the silver, the metallic stuff over top of the green on this. You're getting a lot of variations in the tones of like the flat silver on this one versus like the shiny, more metallic silver, and like the red on here. Even the belt is much better done on the first version. Like you get the shotgun shells that are actually painted. You get like the belt buckle that's much more nicely done. You do get an actual metal chain compared to like the plastic chain on this one. Again, I don't point these out to be like super critical because I did know all of this going into the purchase of this figure. Like this, I mean, they didn't lie about any of this stuff. This is in all the solicitation photos exactly as it is. But, you know, just be aware that this is a less expensive option and therefore much less complete in my opinion. So as you look at like the shoulder armor, you can see the spikes and everything on this one are all painted, whereas this one, they're just the same color as, you know, the rest of the armor. Same goes for the boots. Like I said, there is a little bit of like wash going on the boots, but it's just, you know, they're solid red compared to this one where it's like worn out brown mixed in with like highlights of silver and nice paint on the spikes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you're looking for like a much better figure, go with the Elite one. This one is just for people who are obsessed with Doom, like me. And if I'm offering one other critique, on the left is the new version of the Super Shotgun, and on the right is the old one. As far as I can tell, they're identical. It would have been cool to see like the shotgun at least get a different color scheme, because, you know, in Doom Dark Ages and, you know, previous Doom games, like your character can get a bunch of different skins, but so can your weapons. So it would have been nice to maybe get the gold shotgun, or maybe a red one to match his aesthetics, you know, match his vibes. Would have been cool. And just so we're clear, the original Elite figure comes with more accessories. So you got the hands and the shotgun, same as the new version, but he's also got the shield, which like I said is very baffling why it didn't come with the new version. He's got the flail from the game, and he's got one of the Skull Crusher weapons. So he actually does have a little bit more variety. Knowing that, I would have rather just ditched the shotgun from the new version, give him a shield, and then you could have at least substituted in one of these other weapons so he could at least, you know, he could still feel more like the Dark Ages Doomslayer, or, you know, I know people would probably have a fit if they didn't include a shotgun with a Doomslayer figure, but, you know, maybe you don't need the extra hands or something. I don't know. So as far as comparisons go, here is some other McFarlane Doomslayer offerings. You got the two over here that are the classic skins from Doom Eternal, obviously based on the original 90s Doom games. You got the original version, and there's a you know, red alternate color version that kind of pairs up pretty nicely with the Phalanx skin. There's also a glow-in-the-dark version, but I just never took it out of the box. Obviously here you got the Elite Dark Ages version, and here is the original McFarlane Eternal Doomslayer, which honestly this one's probably the worst of the bunch in terms of just, you know, kind of being pretty lackluster in my opinion. There were also a bunch of repaints and recolors of this version. There was like a bronze one, and there was like the Unicorn Slayer, and like just a bunch of different variations. He's actually a little bit shorter than some of the earlier versions of the Doomslayer figure, so I'm just kind of noticing that now. It's a little unusual, but hey, you know, it's fine, I guess. So as far as adversaries go, your only real option is the Marauder from McFarlane from their Doom Eternal line a couple of years ago. I can't fathom for the life of me why McFarlane Toys, of all people, isn't out here just cranking out demons. Because McFarlane, he's all about creatures and monsters and like all kinds of weird twisted stuff, so like I would think that Doom demons would be like a layup for him, you know? Get out there, make those imps, make the zombies, give me a Baron of Hell, I don't care, like give me something. I actually really like this Marauder, but like we needed more, you know? Again, just another puzzling sidebar in the history of McFarlane doing Doom. So as far as other non-McFarlane releases go, this is the Figma Doomslayer from Doom Eternal, and this is the Nendoroid Doomslayer, also from Doom Eternal. I do know that there is going to be a Dark Ages version by Figma, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know about a Nendoroid, that could happen too, I guess, but yeah, just if you're wondering how he compares to anything not McFarlane, this is how you're looking. He is slightly larger than the Figma offering, and I'm guessing if I had to predict the future here, that the Dark Ages Figma figure will be about the same size as the Eternal one, so, you know, keep that in mind, I guess, for, you know, preemptive collecting if that's something you're interested in. And here he is with Vader. So, final thoughts. I mean, obviously this guy is a significant step down from the previous Doomslayer from McFarlane, the Elite version. But I think everybody who bought this figure knew that was going to be the case. So the lower price point, the solicitation product photos, we could see that the detail was not going to be exactly what it was on the Elite. We could see that the cloth cape was going to be replaced by a plastic one. And, you know, for what it's worth, we could see that he didn't have a shield. And that was people's complaint when they first saw this figure. They're like, why would they leave that out? And I know I'm going to keep harping on that, but, like, seriously, why would you leave out the shield that is the main part of the game? It makes no freaking sense. Or, like I said, you know, leave the hands out, or leave the shotgun out, and then give him one of the other weapons from the Elite version. Or, you know, freaking charge $5 more, give us the gun, give us the shield, leave the hands off the table. Like, I don't care. Whatever. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like I said, even though it is less expensive, it still feels incomplete. I don't necessarily mind the lack of paint details on this one, because, you know, I get it. Cost cutting means you're gonna sacrifice stuff like that. That's fine. Obviously, you know, like I said, the thing with the shield makes no sense. So if anybody knows a like a 3D printer or somebody who can cast one of these shields that came with the Elite version, yeah, leave a comment, let me know, tell me where to find them on Etsy or eBay or whatever, and, you know, we'll get this guy a shield. What do you say? So yeah, if you're going to go for only one version of the Doom Dark Ages figure from McFarlane, go for the Elite. It's going to cost you more, but it is going to be a much better purchase for you. Unless you really just want to play with the red version of the Doomslayer in the game, and then you can get your, you know, your skin code out of the box here and, you know, go to town. I'm still going to rock this skin in the game. I got to try it. I got to see what it's all about. So yeah, there's probably not much here for you unless you're a fanatic over the new Doom games like I am. I've really enjoyed the recent ones over the last 9 years, I guess. 2016, Eternal, and Dark Ages. They all bring something new to the table, something fresh, something fun. I have a great time with all of them. Alright, that said, my name is Captain McKay, and we will catch you in the next one. Later on.